So first off, name's Meesh Powell, or Mishael Powell. People call me Meesh. I'm a fun, exciting, intelligent person. I love to communicate with people, talk about certain things, issues. Yes, I play football, but I don't want that to be the main piece about me. I'd rather about my purpose, people in my life that have helped me, and just kind of how I've developed into the person I am today.
From walk-on cornerback to Iron Pup Award and scholarship recipient.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. I mean, let's talk about why'd you want to play football at the collegiate level, how that all started.
Okay.
And then take me on that journey into what it's like to walk on. What does that really mean? What's going through your head? Right.
So I would say it started off, I'll start off by saying, I always say this, but I did not see myself going to UW. Like in terms of I was a big Oregon fan, but the older you get, you realize that's not the greatest school. But no, I would say it started in high school at O'Day. After my junior year, I started getting offers to a bunch of Ivy League schools, got good grades, things like that. So I had offers from every Ivy League school, and I went down to camps and got those offers. And I liked the Ivy League schools. I liked the idea of them, but something was just kind of missing. And something I noticed about the Ivy League schools is how they, because how recruiting goes is they're trying to sell you their place. This is why you should come here. So their big sell was, it's called 4 for 40. So 4 years in college will set you up for 40 years down the line. So their education, that's what they're getting at with their 4 years. And on my visits, they always talked about just the education piece. They always just talked about just how great Columbia is, how great Yale is. Well, we're ranked number 1 in this. We're ranked number 3. And it was very little about football. And that part, which I was very surprised by, because I was like, well, I'm coming here because I want to play football. But I was like, you guys aren't really talking about football a lot. And then I had a coach that, Coach Harris, shout out Coach Harris, my guy. He hit me up on Instagram because he was a coach at UW and saying hey, we want to get on the phone with you, talk to you, see how you're doing. He called me and said yeah, we want to offer you, a preferred walk-on spot. And we want you, they explained a preferred walk-on, meaning we will, you're on the team. You gotta make sure you have good grades, things like that. It's just your income, how you pay for school. It doesn't come from them; it comes from your parents. So, I was big on it because I wanted to see kind of the both sides of football and getting a good education. So I think UW right now is we're the number 7th ranked school in the country. The Foster Business School is up there and the top schools in the country. So seeing all those factors and going on my official visit, I wanted to get the best of both worlds, I would say. So just having an elite football program, but also an elite education system. So getting into Foster, I would say, was also a big decision, a big piece on why I ended up going to the University of Washington, because education was always first. So coming into UW, it was, yes, I play football, but I'm gonna make sure I have good grades, and I'm gonna make sure I uphold the standard that I've been upholding since I was young. And then I would say just also the idea that usually walk-ons don't play kind of gave me that all right,
not so much.
Speak for yourself when you say that. So kind of just that urge to prove people wrong, I would say, and prove myself right. I always felt that I could play on that type of level. I just needed the right coach to, develop me and get their hands on me to make sure, because I listen. So whatever you tell me to do, I'm gonna do it. So I always knew in my head that if I can just get somebody to really coach me and really invest in me, that I can be one of the best that ever played on the field at the University of Washington. So I would say just the challenge of people saying I don't know if you should do that kind of made me more of, well, all right, watch this. Watch how I do it. So I would say overall getting the best of both worlds in terms of education and football, which kind of steered me away from the Ivy Leagues. Being close to home, I'll bring that up as well. I thought I used to be that kid. I want to live far away. And then you get to that time, you're like, maybe I might stay a little closer than I think. And then I would say the challenge of, accomplishing, getting a scholarship and then playing. I'd say those are all the factors for sure that played a role in me going to UW.
Yeah, that's a powerful story in the sense of what I'm pulling from that is at the time you were 18.
Right.
And you had so much determination to bet on yourself. The reason why I feel for you in that process of saying, hey, if I can just attach myself to someone who is willing to invest in me, willing to see the leap of faith I'm willing to take,
right,
and the determination that I have to become, I think some people say hunger.
Right, yeah. No, that's the word.
It's tough because did you feel like, well, they had already picked you, right?
Right.
They approached you on it. But now you're going into a team of people who had got and had already secured these full rides,
right,
these locked in positions in
right,
these roles. How did you create a peace within and reflect on your identity enough, knowing who you are and what you stand for, that it didn't rub you in a sense of, let's say, imposter syndrome?
I'll say the first thing, I'll give credit to my dad. My dad, he was really big on, like don't get down on yourself. Like I don't want, he worries, not worries about me, but he cares about me a lot, of course. And he always taught me that, you never have to worry about, where's the money coming from. Like I got you in terms of like, so never like when you're playing football or when you're at school, like I need to get a scholarship. That can already put added pressure that you already have on yourself. So he always tell me, like don't worry about where the money's coming from. Just focus on you getting your education and focusing on you just playing football and playing free. So I'll first say my dad, but then also just kind of, it may just be how I carried myself, but I always kind of felt that I belonged in a sense of you may not know it yet, but I know like, oh no, like you guys will see eventually.
Yeah.
Like eventually you'll see what's going to happen. So I never really had that, should I be here or not? Or should I question? I didn't really question those things. Also, strong faith.
Right.
God he's not going to put you in a situation that he don't think you can handle. So, or that he hasn't already given you the tools to handle them. You may have to like find those tools, but they're there though. So I would say I never really had that imposter syndrome. I always felt that I can do it. Now I had doubts in terms of when will I do it? Will it be my final year? Will it be? But I always thought in my head like, no, like I can do this now. Like I can play with these guys. I can compete at the same level, if not higher. And I would say my mindset, I think, was very key. I think walking on, you have to show coaches and the staff that like you're the best by far. If you make it close, they'll lean towards the person they gave a scholarship to. But if you can make it like, oh no, like, oh, this guy's clearly better, like there's no possible way that this guy's better, I would feel like that's kind of the challenge of being a walk-on, is you can be equal with someone and they may lean towards, but I pushed myself to where it was like, oh no, he's the only option. Like he's the one. And I always thought that. So when I carried myself in terms of like my work ethic, whether that was watching film or how I diet or just stuff I put into my body, I was like, I need to show that I'm the best, like I'm the elite of the elite in terms of like the category of guys that where I was around. Like, yes, they're good, but okay, no, but he's good though. Yeah. So I would probably say, yeah, credit to my dad for sure in terms of making me just play relax, like not having to worry anything at the house, him handling that, and then also just being confident in myself. I would say those were all the things that for sure played a role in how my mindset is now and how I kind of carried it when I was 18 coming into college and just seeing all these guys playing, for sure.
Whew. that imposter syndrome word, that
Right.
phrase, it gets thrown around a lot
Right.
in culture. And when we talk about being people of color, being Black people, and being in spaces that historically we haven't had the privilege to occupy.
Right.
And then we come into these spaces and it's like, I don't feel like I belong.
Right.
Personally, I'm with you. I haven't had that.
Yeah, like me personally, I haven't felt that. Yeah.
You know, I haven't felt like I don't belong. I like you mentioned earlier, purpose.
Right.
It's like I'm walking into what was already predestined for
Right,
me. I have peace
exactly.
about that. But the fact, even more, that you had an example and a believer in your dad to say, I got it. Focus on being this role. Focus on you living up to the fullness of that you can live up to
Right.
at this space with the capacity you have. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
That is a huge blessing.
For sure.
Seriously, the thought about competing, the idea of performance comes to mind because my next question is, how do you detach your identity or your character from your performance and ability?
Right. I would say just first and foremost, like a lot of football players, like we have like such different characters like outside of like football. You know, football, it's a part of us as well, but it's not all of us.
Right.
And just speaking for myself is for sure not all of me. That's just a certain part of my life that, you know, I live, but I definitely do a lot more. So to answer your question on how I detach, I would just say having outside friends. I would say also going back home. I would say going back home and seeing my parents and seeing my family members. Just this past week, I had my aunt and my two cousins come from California. They came and visited me and came and watched the game. But just having that constant refresher of like, hey, like, yes, football's here, but like, not even forgetting the people you do it for, but just remember these people that really care about you, and those are your values. Remember, like, this is where you kind of come from. I think with football, especially, you know, at the level that I'm playing at, you know, people can get so caught up in football and people can get so caught up in wanting the idea to be so like dominant or just, and you can just add a lot of added pressure that can really mess with your mind and really question a lot of things. And I would just say that me personally, I guess during COVID, I kind of leaned towards that because I wanted to do good so bad. And I would say it was almost like a blessing in disguise because I felt that same way in COVID that I felt before I ended up tearing my meniscus. So I was out for about 4 weeks and I had to get surgery, and I wasn't sure if I would come back and play this year. But I felt like that was almost like a blessing, I would say. I think how God works is, you know, like, I want you to have this gift, but in a way to where, like, I know you have it and it doesn't have you.
Right.
So I would say that was probably the biggest thing in terms of, you know, being separate, not letting football kind of just cloud, like, everything, and having just a separate, like, identity. I would say I've probably started to really develop my separate, not develop, but show more of it now now after tearing my meniscus than I did it before, just because I was just so caught up in football and like we were doing good and I just wanted to do well so bad. I wanted to do so well. And I think, I would say like it was honestly a blessing that happened because, you know, getting football taken away, I got to like kind of take a step back and like just see everything, you know, not practicing, not having to get ready for another team. Like, okay, now what do you do with that time now? And you realize, oh wow, there's a lot of stuff to do. I can go, let me go up the hill and say hi to my mom. Yeah. Let me make sure I'm checking, okay, let me call so-and-so. And it just kind of opens your whole mind to like this isn't just, football is just one thing. Like in terms of your whole life, like football is only maybe, if you're very blessed, you play maybe till you're 28, 29, 30. Right. But then you have a whole life like after that, you know. So I would say just developing that whole sense of like having a different life is very key and important, and not in just football, but just in any work that you do. Like you don't want to get so caught up in the work that the work has you and you don't have the work. Yeah. So I would say those are probably the biggest key things. And also just, how I separate myself. So like now, like how I separate myself from my football is just doing stuff that has nothing to do with football at all. Whether that's go to Gasworks and just go look at the view, whether that's calling my mom, we'll go get lunch together, or we'll go have a Sunday night dinner, and just kind of reflecting and just hanging out with friends that aren't a part of football, and just kind of taking a step back. I try to do that. I make sure I do that every week, just to remind myself why I'm doing it. But also, like, you know, there are other things out there besides just football, so I don't get so caught up and so in my head about wanting to do so well. And I think that's helped me in terms of football, because now it's like I come back to football in this kind of refreshed, focused state, like I got my time away, now I'm back, and almost like a recharge, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, like with ease.
Yeah.
Now, when did you tore your meniscus?
After the Michigan State week, during the Michigan State game. That's probably September 26th, in that area, in the 20s, I would say. This year, yes. Yeah,
it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you had that perspective check,
right,
that a lot of us had during COVID. Yeah. Did you have that same check during COVID, or was it that same, were you on the same mentality prior to?
I would say that perspective check was a bit different in COVID. I would say COVID, you know, me being so locked in on football and being like, I didn't play that year, and being so frustrated, like, okay, like, well, I did all the workouts during COVID. Well, I did all this and this during COVID. Like, all right, why isn't this happening? Why am I not playing yet? And just kind of questioning things. And it kind of, I would say a key thing was self-reflection. I feel like it's very hard to, you know, kind of reflect and really think, okay, now, why isn't this going your way? Like, is it the situations, or is it you? And I feel like,
come on, Pastor Meesh, come on.
And I feel like in terms of COVID, that was kind of like, okay, are you doing everything you can possible to make sure you play? Like, are you, like, be honest with yourself here. Like, yeah, you're working hard, but are you really doing everything? And I would say I looked at the guys that were kind of playing in front of me, and I was like, okay, are you doing everything that they're doing?
Right.
And then you're like, all right, no, I'm not. And it's like, okay, then now let's refresh and try you doing everything in your power that you can. And once you do that, see where you land.
Meesh, I'm curious if you've heard of this book and if you've read it. And I don't know if you guys have, like, a lot of teams I know have, like, mental health.
Yes, we do. Yep.
So there's this book by Joshua Metcalf called Chop Wood, Carry Water. Have you heard of it?
My roommate Drew Fowler, he lives by that book. I was gonna say I haven't, but he. Shout
out to Drew. A mentor happened to recommend that book to me during a time where I didn't even know I would need it. I had a close relative pass, and it wasn't the first passing, unfortunately, that I had this year of a close relative. So I was definitely in seek of perspective, but not knowing that I needed perspective. And situations like that, situations like COVID, situations like an injury, it makes you slow down. And really get back to the basis of who are you, what are you about, what do you stand for, and what's ahead of you. You know, in my faith, I believe this life is a vapor. I don't believe that I just YOLO, like this, I only live once. You know, I understand that my life is attached to other people, and I'm here to serve. And when you get that in perspective, it starts to shift how you move. You be willing to do things. This time last year, I didn't even want to do an Instagram live. This, a year later, huge transition. So I bring up that book because Joshua Metcalf, he's talking about controlling the controllable, surrendering the outcome. And it sounds like in your process of healing and processing, you learn to surrender whatever the outcome was going to be. You know, and in heal, it symbolizes a healing 360. You know, if you allow it to. So, shout out to Joshua Metcalf. I was at a game, homecoming game.
Was that versus?
That was versus Arizona.
Okay.
And I'm at that game, and I'm looking around. I'm just kind of like taking it in. I'm on the field, taking it in. I see some of your teammates interact with other people.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me that football was like, I believe it's a calling, like people are called to play, but I never saw it as like a ministry.
Right.
I never saw it as like someone being able to serve the innermost, like something about their gifts is serving the innermost being of someone. It's shifting or transforming them, impacting them in ways beyond the physical. I didn't see that until then. And I felt like, wow, I have put athletics in a box as far as who can serve, who's involved, the motive of people involved, etc. Now, being at this point in your college career, athletically, what about football do you see as a service mission for others?
I would say I kind of realized that coming back that, you know, how much of an impact that I may play. And I realized that because, so during pregame, you know, people come down to the sidelines, and while we're warming up, people are going across the sidelines, and it's like either fans or like sometimes the basketball team or sometimes recruits. And like after I do my little pregame, I walk by and I see all these recruits. They're all from Garfield. They all know who I am. They all know I used to play for CD Panthers, and I'm over here looking like, y'all know who I am? And like, and it's like, it's kind of like a shock, like, oh, like, what's up, y'all? Da-da-da, say what's up, whatever. They come to the locker room, I talk to them, but just kind of seeing, I would say, how much impactful you can be without even knowing. And like, that's kind of like almost a motivator for me, because if they know I walked on, they know I used to go to Rotary, I grew up in the Central District. It's kind of like I see it as like telling them, like, you can do this exact same thing. Like, it's not impossible. Like, I promise you, you can take the same route I took. Now, it's hard. The walk-on route is hard, but it's possible for sure. So I would say seeing them, my parents, like, kind of playing for them, seeing how much work they like put in and how much time and effort, and they go to every game. Like, they travel outside of the states. They go to every game just to see me play. And I'm like, wow, like, you guys are really dedicated to like watch me play and to watch me, you know, do my thing on the field. And it's always at the end of the game, like, okay, like, how are you? Like, my mom called me every day, like, how are you doing? It's never really, it's about football, like, okay, how was practice? But like, just seeing how even then, like, how much I do in football, how much they're still just worried about how I am as a person, makes me want to, if anything, like, give it all that I have, and give it all I have just for them as well. And then also, I would say also give it, you know, all to God as well. I feel like, you know, God just at least giving me these talents, like, I feel like it's almost a service to him to like give it all that I have, because not everyone was fortunate to play at this level. Right. So I feel like I myself play for like an audience of one, and that's the audience of God, and giving him like worship through like, hey, like, I'm gonna give it all I have because you gave me all of this. Like, it's only I feel like it's my job to make sure I give it back in the best way that I can. So I'd probably say, yeah, my parents, just seeing kids, like I said before, you know, them like knowing who I am, knowing I came from the Central District, you know, seeing I can be an inspiration for them, and then also just God for sure. You're doing everything right. I think me being 18, I used to question, like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this correct? Or why isn't this working out? But just giving him that reassurance, like, hey, like, relax, like, you're doing everything right. Like, you may be stressed, but you're doing everything right. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing.
Were you a perfectionist at 18?
Pretty close. Yeah. Pretty close. Just because I just wanted to be good so bad.